The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning where the sun feels too bright for the weight you carry in your chest. I held it with shaking hands, staring at the official seal from the county records office. Inside was a single sheet of paper that would change everything. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, to the day my life split into two pieces before and after. 20 years ago, my husband Daniel walked out our front door at 4 a.m, kissed my forehead, and promised he would be home by dinner. He was a truck driver, had been for 15 years. Good man, hard worker. The kind who never complained even when his back ached from those long hauls across state lines. That morning he was running a route from Pennsylvania to Ohio. Simple. Direct. He had done it 100 times. He never came home. The police called at 9 p.m. There had been an accident. A truck matching his description had gone off a bridge near the state line. The vehicle burned so hot they could barely identify it. They found his wallet in the mud below. His work badge melted into the leather. They found pieces of the truck, twisted metal, shattered glass. But they never found him. Not a body, not a bone, nothing. The officer told me it was common in accidents like this. The fire, the river below, sometimes nature takes what is left. They declared him dead after 3 months. Gave me a death certificate with his name printed at the top and a line that still makes my stomach turn. No remains recovered. I became a widow at 42. My son Marcus was 19 then, fresh out of high school, angry at the world, angry at me. He blamed me for his father's death from the very first day. You made him take that route, Marcus screamed at me the night after the funeral. You told him we needed the money. You pushed him to work more. This is your fault. I tried to hold him, tried to explain that it was an accident, that no one could have known. But he pulled away from me like I was poison. His eyes, once so much like his father's, turned cold. And in the 20 years that followed, that coldness never thawed. I lived in my own home for 3 years after Daniel died. I worked 2 jobs, cleaned offices at night, stocked shelves at a grocery store during the day. I kept the house Daniel built, kept his tools in the garage, kept his favorite mug on the shelf. Could not let go. Something inside me whispered that the story they told me was wrong. But grief makes you poor. Medical bills piled up after I collapsed at work one night. The doctors said it was exhaustion, dehydration, stress. The bills said it was $18,000 I did not have. Marcus, who had become a successful real estate agent by then, offered to help. He paid the bills. Then he suggested I sell the house and move in with him and his wife Jennifer. You cannot take care of yourself anymore, he said. You are falling apart. Let me help you. I was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of working, tired of being alone. So I said yes. I sold the house where Daniel and I raised our son, where we laughed and cried and built a life. I moved into the guest room of Marcus and Jennifer's large suburban home. I thought it would be temporary. I thought I would rest, recover, save money, and find my own place again. That was 17 years ago. In the beginning it was not terrible. Marcus and Jennifer were polite, distant but polite. I cooked meals, helped clean, tried to be useful. Their daughter Sophia was just a baby then, and I poured all my love into her. I rocked her to sleep, sang her the same songs I sang to Marcus when he was small. For a little while I felt needed. But Jennifer never liked me. I saw it in the way she watched me, the way her smile never reached her eyes. She was beautiful, polished, the kind of woman who always looked like she stepped out of a magazine. And I was the opposite, rough hands from years of hard work, clothes from discount stores, a woman who had been broken by life and never quite put back together. One afternoon, about a year after I moved in, I came home early from a doctor's appointment. I walked into the kitchen and froze. Jennifer was standing by the counter, her phone pressed to her ear, laughing in a way I had never heard her laugh with Marcus. The voice on the other end was male, low and intimate. I will see you Thursday, she said softly. He does not suspect a thing. She turned and saw me. Her face went white, then red, then hard. The phone call ended abruptly. We stood there in silence, the air thick with the secret I had just stumbled into. If you say one word, she hissed, stepping close to me, I will make sure Marcus throws you out on the street. I will tell him you are losing your mind, that you are imagining things. Who do you think he will believe? His wife or his pathetic mother who could not even keep his father alive? Her words hit me like a fist. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What could I say? She was right. Marcus had not trusted me in years. If it came down to her word against mine, I would lose. So I stayed silent. And Jennifer made sure I paid for it every single day after that. She started small. Forgetting to buy the groceries I needed. Scheduling family outings and forgetting to tell me. Making comments about how much space I took up, how much I cost them. Then it got worse. She began telling Sophia that Grandma was sick, that I had a condition that made me confused, that she should not listen to anything I said. Sophia, my sweet granddaughter who used to run to me with open arms, started to pull away. She stopped hugging me, stopped asking me to read her stories. One day when she was 6, she looked at me with Jennifer's cold eyes and said, Mommy says you are not really my grandma anymore because you are too broken. I cried that night, alone in my room, muffling the sound with a pillow so no one would hear. Marcus grew worse too. The anger that had simmered inside him for years began to boil over. He started to criticize everything I did. The way I folded laundry. The way I cooked. The way I breathed, it seemed. You are a burden, he said one night at dinner. His voice loud enough for everyone to hear. You have been a burden your entire life. Dad worked himself to death because of you. And now you are draining us too. I stared at my plate silent. I had learned that defending myself only made things worse. But something inside me never stopped fighting. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I would pull out the box I kept hidden under my bed. Inside were all the papers from Daniel's accident. The police report. The death certificate. The insurance payout documents. I read them over and over, searching for something, anything that did not add up. And there was something. The insurance money, $350,000, had been paid out to Marcus, not to me. Daniel's policy had listed me as the beneficiary. I had seen the original paperwork years ago. But the updated form, the one the insurance company had on file, showed Marcus as the sole beneficiary. The signature at the bottom was supposed to be Daniel's, but it looked wrong. Too neat. Too careful. Daniel's handwriting was always messy, quick. The writing of a man who had better things to do than worry about penmanship. This signature was different. I brought it to a lawyer once years ago, but he brushed me off. The man is dead, he said. The money went to the family. What does it matter? But it mattered to me. It mattered because I knew my husband. I knew he would never cut me out of that policy. And I knew that signature was not his. Kept searching. Kept questioning. And the more I dug, the more I saw the cracks in the story I had been told. Then, on the 20th anniversary of Daniel's death, everything came crashing down. I woke up that morning feeling heavy, the way I always did on this day. I lit a candle in the kitchen, a small ritual I had done every year. I sat at the table with Daniel's photo in my hands, whispering to him like he could hear me. Marcus stormed in without warning. He looked at the candle, at the photo, and his face twisted with rage. Still doing this? He shouted. Still pretending like he is some kind of saint. He grabbed the photo from my hands and slammed it face down on the table. He left us. He was a coward who could not handle the pressure, and he drove himself off that bridge on purpose. And you are pathetic for worshipping him. I stood up, my whole body shaking. That is not true. It is true, Marcus screamed. And you know what else is true. You do not belong here. This is my house. My family. And I am done pretending you are part of it. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, a small smile on her lips. She had been waiting for this. We have already made arrangements, Marcus continued. There is a facility across town. Place for people like you, people who cannot take care of themselves. You are moving there today. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. You cannot do this. Watch me, he said. Within an hour, my things were packed into garbage bags. Jennifer supervised, making sure I did not take anything valuable. anything that belonged to them. Sophia watched from the stairs, her face blank. I tried to catch her eye, tried to say goodbye, but she turned away. Marcus drove me to the facility in silence. It was a cold, gray building with barred windows and the smell of bleach and despair. He did not walk me inside. He just left the bags on the curb and drove away. I stood there, numb, watching his car disappear. For the first time in 20 years I felt truly alone. But I was not broken. Not yet. The facility was worse than I imagined. I shared a room with 3 other women, all of them lost in their own worlds. The staff barely spoke to us, just shuffled us from one activity to another like we were cattle. I was not allowed to have a phone. I was not allowed visitors without approval. I was trapped, but I was also angry. And anger, I learned, is a powerful thing. There was a young nurse named Claire who worked the night shift. She was kind, one of the few people who looked at me like I was still a person. One night I told her my story. I told her about Daniel, about the insurance money, about the signature that was not his. I told her about Marcus and Jennifer, about the way they had thrown me away like garbage. She listened, really listened. And when I finished, she said something that changed everything. "Believe you." Those 3 words, so simple, so powerful, gave me hope for the first time in years. Claire helped me. She let me use her phone to search for information. She helped me print documents. And she helped me find the one person who could uncover the truth, a private investigator named Sharon Mills who specialized in cold cases. Sharon was tough, no nonsense, the kind of woman who had seen the worst of humanity and refused to be shocked by it anymore. She listened to my story, looked at the documents I had managed to save, and nodded. "Something is wrong here," she said. "Give me 3 weeks." Took her 2. Sharon called me on a Tuesday, the same day that envelope arrived. "I need you to sit down," she said. "What I found, it is big." She had traced the insurance payout. The money had gone into an account under Marcus's name, opened 2 weeks before Daniel's accident. She found the mechanic report from the truck, the one that was never included in the official police file. The brakes had been tampered with, cut clean through. Someone wanted that truck to crash. And then she found the hospital records. A John Doe, admitted to a care facility in West Virginia 20 years ago after a severe accident. Head trauma, memory loss, no identification. The description matched Daniel: height, weight, age, distinguishing marks. The facility had tried to identify him, but without records or family searching. He became just another lost soul in the system. Sharon sent me a photo. It was grainy, taken from a security camera at the facility. But I knew that face. Even aged, even worn down by years of confusion and pain, I knew him. Daniel was alive. I collapsed when I saw the photo. Claire found me on the floor, sobbing so hard I could not breathe. But these were not tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of vindication, of a truth so huge it threatened to split me in half. My son had tried to kill his father. And he had spent 20 years making me believe I was crazy for questioning it. Sharon worked fast. She contacted the facility in West Virginia, verified Daniel's identity through medical records and fingerprints. She contacted the police, presented the evidence of fraud, tampering, and attempted murder. And she contacted a lawyer who specialized in cases like mine, cases where families destroyed each other for money. Took 3 months to bring Daniel home. 3 months of legal paperwork, medical evaluations, police investigations. When I finally saw him in person, standing in the doorway of that facility with Sharon by his side, I thought my heart would stop. He looked at me, his eyes confused at first, searching. Then something clicked. Something deep and buried fought its way to the surface. "Maggie," he whispered. "My Maggie." I ran to him. I wrapped my arms around him and held on like I would never let go. He smelled different, older, but underneath it all, he was still my Daniel. Still the man I had loved for 30 years. Still alive. We brought him home, not to Marcus's house, but to a small apartment Sharon helped me rent. Daniel's memory was damaged, fractured by the years and the trauma. But pieces came back slowly. He remembered the truck. He remembered checking the brakes that morning and finding something wrong. He remembered Marcus telling him it was fine, that he had checked it himself. He remembered the moment the brakes failed on the highway. Terror. A crash. Waking up in a hospital with no idea who he was. As his memory returned, so did the evidence. Daniel gave statements to the police. Sharon presented the financial records, the forged documents, the mechanic reports. And the district attorney built a case that could not be ignored. Marcus was arrested on a Thursday morning. The police showed up at his office, walked him out in handcuffs in front of all his colleagues. Jennifer was arrested the same day for conspiracy and fraud. She had known. She had helped him hide the money, cover the tracks. The trial was brutal. It lasted 2 weeks, and every day I sat in that courtroom with Daniel beside me, watching our son try to lie his way out of the truth. His lawyer painted me as a vindictive old woman with a grudge. They said I was mentally unstable, that I had fabricated evidence, that I had manipulated Daniel, who was clearly suffering from severe memory issues. But the evidence did not lie. The forged signature, the tampered brakes, the offshore accounts where the insurance money had been hidden, the testimony from the mechanic who had been paid to keep quiet 20 years ago but finally broke under police pressure. And then Daniel took the stand. He was calm, clear, more lucid than he had been in months. He looked directly at Marcus and told the jury everything. How Marcus had resented him for years, resented the time he spent away, resented that I depended on him. How Marcus had come to him the night before the accident and convinced him to take the route even though Daniel had a bad feeling about it. How Marcus had offered to check the truck that morning, insisting everything was fine. I trusted him, Daniel said, his voice breaking. He was my son. I thought he wanted to help. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the verdict was clear. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy, forgery. Marcus was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Jennifer got 15. I watched him as they led him away in handcuffs. He looked at me once. His eyes full of something I could not name. Regret, hatred, fear. I did not know. And I realized sitting there in that courtroom that I did not care. He had stolen 20 years from me. 20 years of grief, of guilt, of believing I was the reason my husband was dead. He had thrown me away like I was nothing. And now he would spend the rest of his life paying for it. Daniel and I rebuilt our life slowly. We moved into a small house on the edge of town, nothing fancy, just a place that was ours. He started physical therapy, working to regain strength he had lost over the years. His memory improved, not perfect but enough. Enough to remember our wedding day. Enough to remember the way I looked when I walked down the aisle. Enough to remember that he loved me. We planted a garden in the backyard, tomatoes and peppers and flowers that bloomed bright against the fence. We sat on the porch in the evenings, holding hands, watching the sun set. We did not talk about Marcus. We did not talk about the lost years. We just existed together, alive. Sophia came to see me once, a year after the trial. She was 13 then, old enough to understand what her father had done. She stood on the porch, hands shoved in her pockets, eyes red from crying. "I am sorry, Grandma," she whispered. I did not know. I did not understand. I pulled her into my arms and held her while she cried. "It is not your fault," I told her. "None of this is your fault." She visits us now once a month. She sits with Daniel and asks him about the old days, about her father when he was young. Daniel tells her the good stories, the ones before everything went wrong. And I watch them together, this man who came back from the dead and this girl who is learning that love does not have to come with conditions. The lawyer who helped me win the case also helped me reclaim something else. The house. The one Daniel built, the one I sold when I was desperate and broken. Marcus had bought it through a shell company, planning to flip it for profit. But the court seized his assets, and the house came back to me. We went to see it last spring. The yard was overgrown, the paint peeling, but the bones were still good. Daniel stood in the driveway, staring at the front door, and tears ran down his face. "I built this for you," he said. "I wanted you to have a place that was always yours." We are fixing it up now, little by little. Painting the walls, replacing the floors, planting new flowers where the old ones died. It is slow work, but we have time. We have all the time we thought we lost. People ask me if I forgive Marcus. If I visit him in prison. If I have found peace with what he did. The answer is no. I do not forgive him. I do not visit him. And I will not pretend that what he did was anything less than evil. He tried to kill his father. He stole from me. He threw me away when I needed him most. And he did it all for money, for pride, for some twisted belief that he deserved more than he was given. I do not owe him forgiveness. I do not owe him anything. But I also do not carry hate. Hate is heavy, and I have carried enough weight in my life. Instead, I carry truth. I carry the knowledge that I was right, that I never stopped fighting, that I survived. And I carry love. The love of a man who came back to me against all odds. The love of a granddaughter who chose to see past the lies. The love of people like Claire and Sharon who believed me when no one else did. That is enough. That is more than enough. On the morning of our 43rd wedding anniversary, Daniel and I went back to the bridge where his truck went over. We stood at the edge, looking down at the river below. It was peaceful, quiet, the water moving slow and steady. He took my hand. I thought I would die here, he said. I thought this was the end. But it was not, I said. You survived. We survived. He turned to me, his eyes clear and bright. Because of you. Because you never gave up. I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face, the strength of his arm around my shoulders. We stood there for a long time, two people who had been through hell and come out the other side. And when we finally walked away from that bridge, we did not look back. There was no need. The past was behind us. The future was ahead. And we were together. That is all that matters. That is everything. I tell this story not for pity, not for sympathy, but for every person who has ever been told they are crazy for believing their own truth. For every person who has been silenced, dismissed, thrown away. You're not crazy. Your instincts matter. Your voice matters. And if you keep fighting, if you refuse to be erased, the truth will find its way to the surface. Took me 20 years. 20 long, painful, impossible years. But I won. Not because I was strong, not because I was lucky, but because I refused to let them bury me. And if you are reading this, if you are fighting your own battle, know this. You are not alone. You are not broken. And you are not finished. Keep going. Keep searching. Keep believing. The truth is worth it. You are worth it. And one day, when you stand on the other side of your pain, you will understand what I know now. Survival is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up, no matter how many times they try to keep you there. Got back up. And so can you. Daniel and I are sitting on our porch right now as I finish this. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. He is holding my hand. His thumb brushing over my knuckles in that way he always did. Our garden is blooming. The house is full of light. And after 20 years of darkness, I am finally home. The seasons changed and with them came small miracles. Daniel's memory continued to improve, not in sudden bursts but in gentle waves. One morning he woke up and remembered the first time we danced together at a county fair 40 years ago. Another day he remembered teaching Marcus how to ride a bike. How proud he had been when our son finally pedaled on his own without training wheels. These memories were bittersweet. They reminded us of what we lost, but also of what we once had. Of the family we tried to build before greed and anger destroyed it. The town could not stop talking about our story. First, I hated the attention. Strangers would stop me at the grocery store, asking questions, offering sympathy I did not want. But then something shifted. Women started approaching me quietly, privately. They would pull me aside and tell me their own stories. Stories of being dismissed, gaslit, told they were crazy when they knew something was wrong. One woman, probably in her 60s, grabbed my hand in the pharmacy one afternoon. Her eyes were wet with tears. "You gave me courage," she whispered. "I have been trying to prove my husband's business partner stole from us for 5 years. Everyone said I was paranoid. But after hearing your story, I hired my own investigator. We found the proof last week. I squeezed her hand back. Never stop believing yourself, I told her. The world will try to make you small. Do not let them. These encounters became more frequent. A support group formed, women who had been wronged by family members, who had been institutionalized or dismissed or stolen from. They asked if I would speak at their meetings. At first I was terrified. What did I have to say that mattered? But Daniel encouraged me. Your story is not just yours anymore, he said. It belongs to everyone who needs to hear it. So I went. I stood in front of 30 women in a church basement and told them everything. The years of doubt. The gaslighting. The moment I found Daniel alive. The trial. The victory. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one woman stood and started clapping. Then another. Then all of them. They were not just clapping for me. They were clapping for themselves, for their own fights, for their own refusal to give up. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She could not have been more than 25. She told me her brother had stolen her inheritance after their mother died. Had forged documents just like Marcus had. She had been fighting for 2 years, but everyone told her to let it go, to move on. Should I keep fighting? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. I looked at her, this young woman with her whole life ahead of her, and I thought about all the times I almost gave up. All the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was wrong, if I was crazy, if fighting was worth it. Yes, I told her. You keep fighting. Not because it is easy. Not because you will definitely win. But because the truth matters. 'Cause you matter. She hugged me then, this stranger who felt like a daughter. And I realized that maybe this was the reason I survived. Not just to get Daniel back. Not just to see Marcus punished. But to be a voice for the people who had none. The media attention brought other consequences too. A publisher reached out, asking if I would write a book about my experience. First I said no. I did not want to relive the pain, did not want to expose myself any more than I already had. But Daniel encouraged me again. People need to know what happened, he said. Not just the dramatic parts. The small parts too. The way they made you feel worthless. The way they chipped away at you day by day. That is what people need to understand. So I started writing. Late at night, after Daniel had gone to bed, I would sit at the kitchen table and pour everything onto the page. The memories came flooding back, sharper and clearer than I expected. I wrote about the first time Marcus blamed me for his father's death. I wrote about Jennifer's threats. I wrote about the years in their house, feeling like a ghost in my own life. But I also wrote about the good parts. About Claire, the nurse who believed me. About Sharon, the investigator who fought for me. About Sophia, who found her way back to me despite everything. And about Daniel, who survived against all odds. The book was published a year later. It was called Silenced No More, and it became a bestseller within weeks. Not because it was beautifully written, I am not a professional author, but because it was true. 'Cause it was raw. Because it said things that people needed to hear. I went on a small book tour, speaking at libraries and bookstores. At every event, people would line up to tell me their stories. A man whose sister had stolen his business. A woman whose children had her declared incompetent so they could control her money. An elderly man whose son had forged his will. The stories were all different, but they were also all the same. Family betrayal. Gaslighting. The legal system that failed them. And the desperate need to be believed. I listened to every single one. I held hands. I cried with strangers. And I told them what I wished someone had told me 20 years ago. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you have every right to fight. The money from the book was more than I ever expected. Daniel and I did not need much, we had learned to live simply, but I wanted to do something meaningful with it. So I started a foundation. It provided financial assistance to people fighting legal battles against family members who had defrauded or abused them. It helped pay for lawyers, investigators, expert witnesses, all the things I could barely afford even with Sharon's help. The foundation was small at first. Just me and a part-time assistant working out of our home office. But it grew. Donations came in. Volunteers offered their time. Lawyers agreed to take cases pro bono. Within 2 years we had helped over 100 people. One case in particular stayed with me. A woman named Ruth, 78 years old, whose son had forged her signature and sold her house while she was recovering from a stroke. She had been living in a homeless shelter when she found our foundation. We connected her with a lawyer who took her case. Took 18 months, but she won. She got her house back. And when she called to thank me, she said something I will never forget. "You saved my life," she said. "Not just by helping me get my house back, but by making me believe I deserved to fight for it. That is what kept me going. Not the media attention or the book sales or the recognition, but the knowledge that my pain had purpose. That my story could light the way for someone else stumbling through the dark." Marcus tried to contact me once from prison. A letter arrived, 3 pages of messy handwriting. I recognized his penmanship immediately. For a moment, I considered throwing it away without reading it. But curiosity won. The letter was not an apology. It was a justification. He explained how much pressure he had been under, how much he resented growing up with an absent father, how he convinced himself that he deserved the insurance money more than I did because he was the one who had suffered. He talked about how the plan had spiraled out of control, how he never meant for Daniel to actually die, just to be injured enough that the insurance would pay out. He talked about how guilty he felt when the truck went over the bridge, how he had nightmares for years. But nowhere in those 3 pages did he say he was sorry. Nowhere did he take responsibility for what he had done to me. It was all excuses, all self-pity, all poor me. I read the letter twice, then I burned it in the fireplace. Daniel watched me, saying nothing. When the last piece of paper turned to ash, he put his arm around me. "Do you regret reading it?" he asked. "No," I said. I needed to know if he had changed. Now I know he has not. And that was that. We never spoke of Marcus again. But Sophia, sweet Sophia, she was different. She came to live with us when she turned 16. Jennifer had been released early for good behavior, but Sophia refused to live with her. She stood in front of a judge and said she wanted to live with her grandparents, the ones who told the truth. Having her in our home was a healing I did not know I needed. She filled the house with music and laughter and teenage drama about boys and school and friends. She asked questions about Daniel, about me, about what life was like before everything fell apart. One night, she asked me if I hated her father. We were sitting on the porch, watching fireflies dance in the yard. It was the kind of question that deserved an honest answer. "I do not hate him," I said carefully. "I hate what he did. I hate the choices he made. But hate is exhausting and I am too tired to carry it anymore." "Do you think he ever loved us?" she asked, her voice small. "Me and Mom. I think he loved you the best way he knew how," I said. "But sometimes people are too broken to love properly. And that is not your fault. It was never your fault." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat there in silence, 2 people learning how to heal from the same wound. Sophia went to college the year she turned 18. She studied social work, said she wanted to help families like ours. Families torn apart by greed and lies. I was so proud of her I cried at her high school graduation. Daniel's health began to decline when he turned 70. The years of trauma and memory loss had taken their toll. He started forgetting small things again, where he put his glasses, what day it was, whether he had taken his medication. But he never forgot me. Even on his worst days, when he could not remember what year it was, he would look at me and smile and say, "There is my Maggie." We made the most of the time we had. We took the trip to Savannah that Sophia's brother Lucas had given us all those years ago. We walked on the beach. We ate seafood and laughed and held hands like teenagers. We lived. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset for what felt like the 1,000th time, Daniel turned to me. "Do you have any regrets?" he asked. "Thought about it. About the years we lost. About Marcus. About all the pain and suffering." And I realized the answer was no. "I do not regret fighting," I said. "I do not regret believing in the truth. I do not regret any of it. Because all of it brought us here. To this moment. To this life." He smiled and kissed my forehead. "Then neither do I." Daniel passed away peacefully in his sleep 2 years later. He was 72. I woke up that morning and knew before I even touched him. The room felt different, quieter, emptier. I held his hand for a long time, whispering goodbye, thanking him for coming back to me, for giving me those precious years we fought so hard to reclaim. The funeral was small, just me, Sophia, a few friends, and members of the support group who had become like family. We buried him next to his parents in the cemetery on the hill overlooking the town. It was a beautiful spot, peaceful, the kind of place where you could feel the presence of everyone who came before. At the burial, Sophia held my hand. "Are you okay, Grandma?" she asked. "I am," I said, and I meant it. 'Cause I got him back. Got to say goodbye. That is more than most people get. I lived alone for a while after that, but I was not lonely. The foundation kept me busy. Sophia visited every weekend. The support group met twice a month. I gave talks at conferences and churches and community centers. I stayed connected to the world, to the fight, to the purpose that gave my pain meaning. Now, as I sit here writing the final words of this story, I am 78 years old. My hair is completely white. My hands shake when I hold a pen too long. But my mind is sharp. My heart is strong. And my voice has never been clearer. People often ask me what I want my legacy to be. The answer is simple. I want people to know that the truth always matters. That fighting for it is never a waste. That survival is not about being unbreakable. It is about refusing to stay broken. I want every person who has been silenced, dismissed, gaslit, or thrown away to know that they have value, that their story matters, that they deserve to be believed. And I want them to know that it is never too late. It took me 20 years to find the truth, but I found it. And if I can do it, so can they. My son Marcus is still in prison. He will be there for another 8 years. I do not think about him much anymore. He made his choices. He lives with the consequences.